Welcome to our full-time missionary training videos. These videos are designed to help you get a firm, broad understanding of what it means to become full-time missionaries in the foreign lands. These videos will be a massive blessing and it will help you get started right in the mission field. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel because what we're going to do is be continually uploading content that will be valuable to you to help you in your work in the foreign lands. Also, if you're somebody that's wanting to get into the mission field, but you really don't know how and you need help, please contact us. There's a description in this video and we provide the link to do so. We would love to walk you through the process. Also, we have a Facebook group. That link is in there as well. That Facebook group is missionaries around the world collaborating and networking together, strengthening one another in the work that we're doing in the foreign lands. And then one final note, this whole entire series is based off of a book, Pursuing the Call, with Danny Lamastra. He's a missionary in El Salvador. I highly recommend you getting a copy of that. And again, thank you so much for being here. We pray that these videos are a blessing to you. Thank you. Well, welcome, Adriana. I just wanted to, introduce you to everybody. And I had the pleasure of talking to John. You're the wife of John, and you are part of HFMM, Honduran Fellowship of Missionaries and Ministries.
Right.
Like I tell John, it's something I had to learn to remember. But you guys run this ministry, and like I brag about you guys everywhere of how you guys are the lifeline of missionaries in Honduras. I firmly believe in my heart that there'd be a lot of missionaries going home if it wasn't for you guys. So, we want to thank you so much for what you do for the people here in Honduras, or the missionaries. So God bless you. We're going to talk about dealing with ugly. And, some people are like, what do you mean dealing with ugly? And I think it's Marcy. I believe she was on your missionary care team. I believe this is what she does. And she worked really hard on helping missionaries in HFMM. She had a huge heart for missionary care. And I think that missionary care is extremely important. It's very valuable because, we think, oh, we're Christians, life's going to be perfect, but that's obviously not the case.
So no, not at all.
Well, welcome. Thank you for coming and helping us learn a little bit more about dealing with ugly.
Sure thing. It's my pleasure.
So anyway, dealing with ugly is, we look at it prior to getting to the field. And you and I were talking before we started recording here, the nuances of that. So, I asked you, do you deal with this a lot? Meaning dealing with ugly, like financial issues, marital issues, parental issues, issues with maybe your current ministry or pastor that you're connected to. There's just a lot of reasons. And then there's a lot of reasons why people come to the mission field. And unfortunately, sometimes it's to escape, and they believe once they get to the field, everything's going to be okay. So, share with me what you said before we got started. Do you see this an issue still right now to this day?
Yeah. Like I said, we've been on the mission field now for 20 years. Obviously, there are people who have much more experience than we do, but what we have observed specifically here in Honduras, and that's what I can speak to, is that we are seeing kind of a shift in that there are a lot more missionary organizations that are focusing on member care, both preventative and then post, like as something is happening, trauma is occurring or something that's happening on the mission field. But we are seeing a lot more mission organizations kind of become aware of the fact that there are some things that it would be really helpful to deal with and to help missionaries kind of walk through before coming to the mission field. And like you said, maybe that's financial issues, maybe that's that's marriage issues, maybe that's parenting issues. And we're seeing this member care kind of grow in mission organizations that didn't exist before or didn't exist on a widespread level. I think where we mostly were in the past was dealing with things as they happened. And so, okay, well, what do you do if a marriage is in trouble? Or what do you do if your children are in trouble? Or what do you do if you don't have support? Or what do you do if you have conflict with your mission team or with the natives or whatever it may be? And so we were kind of dealing with things historically just kind of as they happened, instead of working on the preventative side of saying, what kind of tools can we give to people to help them through these things that we know are going to happen? And so what we've seen is that missions organizations are doing a great job of kind of putting these things into place. What we're not seeing is that the independent missionaries that are coming, so people who are kind of coming on their own, they're being sent by their church, or maybe they're just coming and they're just saying, like, I went on a short-term mission trip to this country. I made a connection with a local pastor. I'm going back. And so they don't have that support network. They don't have those people who can kind of see their situation from an outside perspective and kind of give them those tools to be able to come into the mission field. Historically, in the past, it was all about the mission. It was all about what you were called to do and accomplishing the mission. And you can go back and read through missionary biographies, pastor, like things of the past, and you can see how, yes, they accomplished amazing things, but their home lives were very often a mess. Very many marriages that failed and continue to fail on the mission field. That's something we see a lot, is the stress that missions puts on marriage and family. And so we see kind of the old school missions, which was all about preparing you to do the job and preparing you to do the ministry, but not really preparing you to live well in the process.
Yeah, it's funny we're even dealing with this. But I find it interesting because I just read a book on a pastor, and I wish I had his name right now in the book. My goal is to get him on an interview, but basically that's their whole entire process that they put their missionaries through. They're kind of a mission-oriented ministry, so they find it extremely important to put their missionaries through a process before they'll even permit them to go to the mission field. So they're not like a sending agency, because they do refer them over to a sending agency, or they help them align with an agency of choice. So they're not a sending agency, but he wrote a book on the entire process that he puts the missionaries through, and it deals with marriage, it deals with parenting, it deals with all these subject matters. So that's something that we're going to put together at CGE, as far as on how to train pastors on how to raise up your missionaries and how to prepare them to go to the field. Now, God bless my church. I love Abundant Light Church in Radcliffe, Kentucky, giving a plug for them. But, we were a part of, I've been connected to them for 30 years. So I think that we went to the mission field probably about 20 some years with them. But there was no sit down to say, hey, look, let's kind of go through your life and make sure there's nothing that's going to raise its ugly head. And I'm not faulting them for anything. Obviously we were just those perfect parishioners, congressional members at the church. They just knew we were going to be perfect in the mission field. And obviously I'm just joking when I say that. But we didn't go through that process. And again, I'm not faulting them for that. But like you're saying, unfortunately, there are a lot of ministries that they don't understand the process. And then also they don't even understand the pressures that missionaries deal with in the mission field. So they just think, hey, look, we're going to send them down there. We're going to support them. Everything's just going to be all bed of roses down there because they love Jesus and
it'll all be okay.
They're going to do Jesus work. But unfortunately, emotions is involved. If you go with debt, and you don't realize, like when we got on the mission field before we came, there's a guy that said, oh, you guys can live on the field for $500 easily. So I'm just thinking, hey, we got $350 of monthly support. Surely we can raise the rest.
We can do it. Right.
And I was sick to my stomach as soon as I got to the grocery store here in Copon Rinis to realize the first bill was $500. So, obviously those financial issues could arise if you miscalculate your finances, if you were in debt prior to getting to the mission field that you didn't pay off your
Right.
debt. So obviously those things should be covered prior to coming to the field. So,
Right.
so,
Yeah. And I think too, like you said, we had a very similar, that we had an amazing supporting church. We came with a great organization. But there were just a lot of practical things that that were never covered. We studied missions in college, and that's one of the reasons I really appreciate you putting this together, because we were missions. John was a missions major. I was a missions minor. Ask me if we ever took one financial class.
yeah.
Zero.
Yeah.
Ask me if we ever took any classes about, we took some cross-cultural communications classes, some things like that, but nobody prepares you for the isolation. Nobody prepares you for the fact that even we had an amazing church here that we worked with, but there was nobody who understood what it was, what the pressures that we were feeling, the fishbowl pressure of everybody being able to see into your lives all of the time. There were just some things that we were not aware were going to come up once and then compound that with the pressures of the culture shock that you're facing, the pressure to perform. So one of the things that we've seen a lot is that missionaries cover up anything that might be an ugly thing in their life, whether that's, we've seen a lot of missionaries, again, we talked about marriages, but a lot of missionaries who are having problems with their children, whose kids are rebelling, who just whatever it may be, that they're having a family issue, a lack of support. And they will cover that up because they feel this pressure to perform and to get out that newsletter that says, we just went and had this amazing crusade and 500 people came to the Lord and we handed out 600 bags of food and rescued 12 children from the streets. And we need numbers and we need results. And so that pressure to have those results, the pressure to maintain this, like you said, we're the perfect people because we're missionaries. Really leads to an isolation and a hiding of things. And when you don't have anybody that you can share those things with, and you don't have either a great organization that checks in on you, or a pastor that checks in on you, or people who keep you accountable, whatever that is, if you don't have that, those things just continue to grow. They continue to grow, they continue to fester, and to the point where you end up leaving the mission field because you've not been able to say, hey, I'm feeling really depressed right now. I'm feeling really isolated. We came to the mission field I was pregnant and we had a small child. And I was so alone. So alone. My language skills were not up to par. So we were going to church, but I wasn't really getting a lot out of the sermons. I couldn't drive here. We only had a stick shift. So, hey, by the way, I still need to learn how to drive a stick shift, but I was all alone in the house, stuck with the kids. And I was so alone and so dry. But of course, I still had to say, this is a wonderful day on the mission field, blah, 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 and put out these perky, happy videos and things because we're selling this product. But in the meantime, you're dying inside. But who do you tell? And so one of the big things that in dealing with ugly things, whatever that may be, I'm a strong supporter of you need a pastor.
Oh, absolutely.
You need a pastor in your life. You are not, and even if you are a pastor, you need a pastor. You need somebody who is looking out for your spiritual well-being. And the other is you need some people you can be really honest with. Yes, you have to write the newsletter. Yes, you have to show the results. Yes, when you go to a church to speak, you don't want to be misery and doom and gloom and all these things. But at the same time, you do need some core people that you can say, hey, today is a really rough day. Things are not going really well. We're struggling in this area in our marriage. We're struggling. I've seen singles on the mission field really struggle with loneliness and isolation and not really knowing how to make good friendships here on the mission field. And so people give up. Because they don't have that support behind them that says, okay, you're actually just a real person that is going to go through real things. And it might even get worse on the mission field
Yeah.
because of the pressure that you're under.
Yeah, I think it, you've done so well in explaining a lot of things, because I'm like, she's reading my mail. I'm like, because I mean, we've dealt with all these things, the isolation, the fishbowl effect, the feel like you got to perform issues, you're dealing with the culture. I mean, it just, all these things just coming at you. And, who are you going to, I don't want to say who you're going to cry to, who are you going to talk to? Because I mean, I think crying is a negative term. Who are you going to talk to? Because you do need to talk to somebody. You do need to have somebody. And I've done real well, or we are fortunate because we have a pastor that we can call and talk to and say, these are some issues that we're dealing with. What do you think? And
without fear of losing support.
Oh, of course.
That's a big one, because missionaries don't want to be honest because they're afraid that they will lose support if they tell their sending churches that they're struggling with something, minor or major. That's a big fear issue.
But I would really, boy, that would scare me to think that I would have that relationship with a church that I'd be scared that I couldn't talk to, knowing that they're supposed to be my pastor and pastoring over my life as well. And, I just, like I said, I mean, I've called them, maybe we've been here 8 years. We've probably called maybe 3 or 4 times. And, every time there's just been open arms and just a loving counsel, a loving, encouragement and so forth to get back on track. So I'm very fortunate I have that. But like you said, there's some missionaries that probably don't feel like they do have that.
Right.
What are some things that you would recommend? Again, it sounds like you said, there's organizations out there that are sending people to the field, and a lot of them are very well prepared. They're doing a great job in preparing the missionaries for it. So let's say you do have that one missionary that is either independent, going to go to the mission field with him and his family, or her and her family, or whatever it may be. What do you recommend them to do to prepare to deal with the ugly, because they don't have a sending agency that's actually working with them through the process?
Right. I think that part of it is just being really aware that the mission field is not easy. And that it will bring stuff up. It will bring up things that are unresolved in your life. It will kind of amplify because you are in this pressure-filled situation, especially at the beginning of being on the mission field. And there's this excitement that kind of pushes you, and the adrenaline that pushes you. But as you go through, just realizing that just because you are a missionary doesn't mean you won't have these ugly things to deal with. I think one of the greatest things, like we said, have a pastor, have somebody that you check in with regularly, somebody that if you're preparing to go to the mission field, I think it'd be a great idea to go through some counseling before you go, especially if you're married. Just kind of get a checkup. I had one missionary friend who said that they talked to this counselor that he basically said it was like a tune-up for your car. Like you go in, even though you're like, I think everything's all right. I think we're doing okay, but maybe you could just check the oil, check the fluids, check the tires, like just kind of make sure, just kind of do a little overhaul and see if there's anything that kind of pops up and that maybe needs to be dealt with. Don't burn your bridges. I know a lot of missionaries who are like, yay, I'm leaving the United States. I'm leaving my country. I'm off on this adventure. You need to keep those relationships strong from sending church, from your family. It's a lot easier now than it used to be. I mean, when we came 20 years ago, we had to make, long distance international phone calls standing on the roof of our house because it was the only place we had a phone signal, like to be able to keep in touch with grandparents. But I mean, now, and I think that idea of just kind of like running away and leaving it all behind is a very naive thought. And it's also something that will, in the end, come back and will be damaging because you do need those things. The other thing that I would say is this is something that I dealt with personally. So I went to a Bible college, but that's not the point. But I went to a Bible college of a particular denomination, and I was looking into missions as a major. And I kind of started looking at they were going through like, here's all the steps that you need to go through before you become an approved missionary. And it was like, okay, you have to graduate from the Bible school, and then you have to work in a local church, and then you have to work as a missionary intern for 2 years, and then you have to do a year of language school, and then you have to, it was like all of these steps. And I was like, oh, forget this. I just want to go.
Yeah.
And I was in such a hurry to go. And I think, not that I think it wasn't God's plan for us, but I look at it now, and I think my naivety in that moment was just like, I just need to go. God's calling me. I just need to go. I just need to get there. Hurry, hurry, hurry.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to put in the time to do the steps. Language school is hugely important. If you take the time to do the language school, take the time to do a training course, take the time to go to school, take the time to do, especially if you're an independent missionary, because you need those tools. And when you just kind of run off, like I look at it now and I see like, wow, some of these organizations that make you jump through all these hoops that I was like, oh, I don't have time for that. Their missionaries are on the field 30, 40 years. These are long-term lifer missionaries who were sustaining and making it on the mission field, versus some of these independent missionaries who are just like, I'm leaving it all. I'm going to the mission field. And then 2 years later, they have no money. They have no support. They're falling apart. They don't know the language. They can't communicate. Like, all these things are happening, and then they give up and they leave.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing the benefits that I did not see in my youth. The preparation that I think is vital.
It basically paves the way. I mean,
yes.
Which would you rather travel on, a paved, nice, smooth road, or would you rather travel on a road that's full of potholes and speed bumps and whatever, what we experience in driving on the roads here in Honduras? I mean, it just, kind of going back to, like you were saying, like getting some marital counseling and stuff like that. They were talking in the book. I mean, he really delves into some very deep discussions, and I mean, like secret sins, things like that, because he knows, like you said, because I think that when you are under pressure, these things that are hidden, these things that maybe you think you're glossing over in your marriage, that maybe you're ignoring right now, that they seem like you can just ignore them and you sweep them under the rug and everything's gonna be okay. But when you get into the environment that you described, they raise their head. They will come to the service, and they will present themselves, and they can be a very negative thing. And the last thing you want to do is be dealing with them down here. So I think it's really good. And I love how you use that, a get a tune-up kind of, analogy of a car. Mm-hmm. It's so true. I think there's nothing wrong with just saying, look, pastors, can you please counsel us for the next 2 months? Just be honest and just drag out anything and everything that you think that we could be facing. Let's get all this stuff on the table right now. And, because again, in the book, Secret Sins, you got to get rid of all this stuff, because you just don't want to be dealing with it on the mission field. Because I think humans have a propensity to embrace those things that they use to, I don't even know how to say it, but, they embrace them to be a relief valve, so to speak. Right. And when you are dealing with great amount of pressure, it's like these type of things that you're going to right now to bring comfort in your life, but they're actually bringing harm in your life. You need to get set free from this kind of stuff. So that's kind of like, just dealing with the ugly that's maybe you're facing in your life. You're ignoring it, but you really need to deal with it. So. Right.
And there's the common analogy of like, you can't yell at your boss, so you yell at your wife, or you kick your dog or whatever. And so the pressure to be the perfect missionary in the eyes of your supporters, in the eyes of your supporting churches, in the eyes of the people that you've come to minister to, like you are the missionary. And so, you can't take your frustration out on the local pastor that you're working with. You can't take your frustration out on, the kids that you're rescuing or whatever the situation is. And so when you hit those, especially those culture pressures and those culture shocks and things like that, when you hit those pressures, what you end up doing is you end up taking them out in your confines of your home. And so then we see where, you're taking it out on your spouse, you're taking it out out on your kids, you're taking out on yourself, you're going back to those addictive behaviors, you're all of those things because you feel that need to live this perfect, flawless image. And so the idea of having somebody that you can be transparent with is so vital and so key to be able to say, look, today was a really rough day.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be, it's because you don't want to start taking that out. I've heard so many stories from missionary kids who grew up in terrible homes because they were all about the ministry, all about the mission, all about everything else. And just looking at the lives of, it's very eye-opening. When John and I were in college, we took a class called History of Missions. And it was basically a bunch of biographies of very, very famous ministries and missionaries throughout history and kind of the development and spread of missions. And as a single person reading this book, and this was before John and I started dating, I was reading through this material and I remember telling God, it doesn't seem possible to have a good family and a good ministry at the same time. If you're calling me to missions, how do you do this? Because I'm looking at page after page after page of historical missions that have terrible family lives. And I would like to have a good family life.
Yeah.
I would like to have a good marriage. I'd like to have a good relationship with my children. And I got to the point as a single woman preparing for missions where I was like, I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's possible. And so I actually wrote my dissertation in college on single women missionaries because I was like, okay, I guess I just can't have both.
Yeah.
And so God obviously changed his plans for me, or changed my idea of my plans and brought me into a marriage and family. But that has been a big goal of ours throughout our lives, is that we don't want to have a wonderful ministry and a terrible home life.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah.
We want to serve God well, but also to love each other well and to love our family well. And you have to do that really, really intentionally. That's not by accident, and it doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
So.
And, I don't mean to date this video, but it really is something that applies to this situation is, dealing with the pandemic.
Right.
I mean, we didn't have the liberty that, a lot of people in the United States did, where we had a government said, hey, you can't leave your house but once every 2 weeks. I don't know how big your property is, but we have this little box, So literally, I mean, I just still laugh with my wife. I say, can you believe that we went through basically 6 months of being with each other 24/7? I mean, we still are with each other pretty much 24/7.
Right.
But if I got upset, I can at least go to town and get a cup of coffee. But before the pandemic, it was like, I'm going on the other side of the porch, and we didn't kill each other. I mean, I will be honest. I believe in my heart, I think our marriage strengthened during that time. Because I mean, basically we were just, we were looking at each other for 24 hours a day. And our daughter she was gone. She moved to Guatemala City. So it was just us and the dog. And, but if you didn't have a healthy, relationship, there was hidden things that you were dealing with, that if that was a time, that would have been a time that a lot of issues could have rose during that time.
And we did see that, actually. We saw a lot of people who really had not focused on their home life, had not focused on their kids and their family or themselves. And we did see a lot of discouragement. We saw a lot of marriages struggling through those times of isolation. And really, you have to work to prepare yourself for those times and to really by the grace of God, to be able to maintain a strong self, a strong marriage, your own spiritual life. Those are things that you have to really work to protect. And I think some of the other ugly things, that come up obviously are conflicts in ministry. Finding when you work side by side with somebody that you're in ministry with, whether that's local or another missionary. And I'm sure you've seen some of the research and stuff, but most of the reason that people leave the mission field is either a family issue. So that could be, I mean, we've seen a lot of people leave for really great reasons. My mom's health is failing in the States. I need to go back and take care of her. But we've also seen negative family issues that have brought people away from the mission field, what I feel prematurely. But the other big reason is conflict. And so, you are a flawed human being working alongside other flawed human beings. And just because you're two missionaries working together doesn't mean that your personalities click. It doesn't mean that you have the same ideas of how to do things. It doesn't mean that you'll have the same values or the same. And so working alongside other people and kind of dealing with those conflicts in ministry. Again, I think it's really valuable to have a third party. I think it's really valuable to have somebody that you can say, look, we need to sit down and we need to work this out for the good of the ministry, for the good of what we're doing for the kingdom. Because we've just seen a lot of people leave just because they were angry at somebody.
Yeah.
Like they just couldn't get along, or their ministry let them down, or the heads of the ministry said this, and when we got there, it was a totally different thing, and like whatever that may be. And so the idea of there's so many things that can be potentially conflict on the mission field, that if you don't have a strong foundation in yourself, if you don't have a strong walk with God, a strong prayer life, a strong covering, if you don't have that pastor in your life, if you don't have those prayer people who are covering over you, if you don't have somebody that you can be transparent with, or if you don't make the step and say, actually, we need counseling. We need counseling in our ministry. We need somebody to come in and kind of set things in order. I think those are all really valuable things, but it takes humility.
Yeah.
It takes being able to say, I can't do this all on my own.
Yeah.
And missionaries are very like, I can do it kind of people. Like, that's why we do these jobs, right? We become missionaries because we are self-starters. We are self-motivated. We are take charge kind of people. We're the people who can get things done. We're the trailblazers. We have these big personalities. And so having the humility to admit that you need help, pre or during or post, is really difficult for people. And so I think just that humility goes a long way.
I'm going to add this. I'm a big subscriber of Joyce Meyer and some of the material that she's written, like Battlefield of the Mind. And I can't remember the name of the other book, but I've just been a big proponent. I remember I was just having a conversation with somebody the other day, and he just kept on badgering me about the vaccination. And, whether you took it or not, that's your business, but I took it and I was going for the second shot, and he just was spending like a whole hour just beating up on me. And I just felt like my mental health was just like deteriorating right in this conversation. Yeah. It's like, dude, seriously, I'm done talking about this because I manage my thought life. And I just think that's something that I work really, really hard on, is just managing my thought life, because, sometimes we dwell on things that's just not even worth thinking about. And then it leads into other things that are just not healthy thought processes. And I mean, I'm not making fun of the situation, but it kind of goes down to where we can be so petty that it can rob us of the joy of being in the field. And I remember Marcy asked something on our Facebook group that we have. She asked something about, I can't remember, what is some of your issues that you're dealing with as missionaries on the field. And one person, again, I'm not mocking them, but I'm just saying this is sometimes how petty we can get, is she was upset because someone didn't say hi to her at Price Mart. And, because they were a missionary, and she was upset because they didn't say hi. And it really made her upset that missionaries won't say hi to her at Price Mart. People might be like, what's Price Mart? It's like Costco's or Sam's or something like that. And I'm just like, wow, and again, I don't want to mock them, but it kind of goes down to what we're saying, dealing with ugly. We got to deal with our emotions as well. We got to deal with our thought lives as well. We got to, like you said, we're all in the same boat here. We're trying to achieve something, for the gospel of Jesus Christ. And David Mora, I talked to him about networking, the importance of networking with fellow missionaries. And he says he's dealt with missionaries that literally you can't go in a certain area of the community because that's their area. And it's just like, these are just, we're dealing with ugly before getting the mission field. We're kind of dealing with ugly now in the mission field. And it's just like, we've got to learn just to be able to work with each other. So what if someone comes in your neighborhood? God bless them. Go out and help them. Why do you have to feel like you have to protect a certain neighborhood or get upset because they didn't say hi to you at Price Mart or wherever you may be? I mean, we should just realize we're all in this foreign land. We're all trying to do this work together, and we're not competitors. We're here together, and we can come together under the kingdom of God and advance the work, no matter what agency you work for, whatever the name of your ministry. So, it's kind of going off of what you're saying. We've got to deal with ugly here on the field as well. We got to deal with ourselves, and I'd say our thought lives and how we view things and how we think about things, and so I know I've changed my attitude a lot since I've been here. So
yeah, I think one of the other things that I would add is we came out of personally a very faith-based Christianity, and so that faith-based teaching and everything kind of just tells you all you need is Jesus and that's it. And so and I think that there are a lot of missionaries who come with that idea of we just need Jesus and that's it. We just need our Bible and Jesus and off we go. And so, I guess just again, to kind of stress that idea of preparation, and that it's valid and it's good and it's worth it. It's not a delay, but it's God preparing you to be able to come. And yes, all you need is Jesus, but learning the language is good too. Yes, all you need is Jesus, but being prepared for your field and having the right education to prepare you for what you're going to be able to do. Those things are good and helpful, and I also think on the post side of it, some of the things that we're seeing in the big mission organization, and there is one thing I don't always agree with, is that a lot of times their answer is just to pull people off the field. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're having this thing, come off the field. You're come off the field. I think that's necessary sometimes, but not always. And so I think that sometimes you can deal with things in the moment and where you are, and having that good support network and look, you can do counseling by Zoom. You don't have to leave and give everything up, just because of one thing that's happening in your life. So I've also seen kind of that shift though too, of kind of this easy give up of oh, well, our marriage isn't so great, or this ministry isn't working out the way. And so that stick-to-itiveness and that perseverance is something that I'm kind of seeing lacking in the newer generation of missionaries that are coming in. Something gets hard and they leave.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's our pastor and we leave. We have a conflict with our other missionaries. We have a hurt feeling because somebody didn't say hello to us and we leave. And so I would also just say while all of those counselings and debriefing and all of those things are so amazing and good and healthy, don't throw in the towel just because something is ugly. God didn't call us to something that's easy. Yeah. So living on the mission field is difficult. Living under that pressure situation is hard. It is, but don't give up just because there's something that's ugly in front of you. Don't give up because the ministry didn't turn out the way you wanted it to, or the church that you planted failed, or ask God what's next. Where do you go? Or do you stay in it and do you work through it? And do you work through forgiveness and reconciliation? And do you humbly submit to a leadership that you don't agree with? Do you that really takes just coming, again, that humility, coming before God and saying, okay, this is the situation and how do I deal with this? Do I pull out for the good of my family? Do I leave? Do I go get counseling, or do I stay here and plow through it with the help of my pastors and my friends and and so there's no one answer.
Yeah.
But don't give up just because it's hard. Don't give up because it's hard. The preparation coming. Don't fast forward and skip over it. But at the same time, when it's hard in the middle, don't say, oh, well, I guess I just have to leave the mission field. Because that's not always the answer. So
no, I agree with you.
Something kind of that's been on my heart. So,
there definitely could have been opportunities where, I've told God I don't want to be here anymore at least 50 times, probably even more, but I'm still here. And I think it just all goes down to what you're saying. Have strong pastoral care, have a relationship with God, read your word, live your life,
Yeah.
have a prayer life. God will strengthen you. God will grace you to do what you're called to do down here. You got to rely on him. I mean, there's so many components to this. And I mean, obviously we could talk on a long time about this subject matter, but I just think you and John are just perfect for this subject matter because obviously you've seen a lot
Yeah.
in this area. So, and I really like your encouragement of just, encouraging people, don't give up. Don't give up. I myself doing 8 years now, I'm glad I haven't given up. Life is a lot more simpler and easier now than it was before
Right.
because of
Right.
dealing with all the things that we discussed. But I mean, to me, I'm seeing the fruit of our ministry because we have stuck it out and we have seen the
Right.
lives that we have changed. And not only the lives on the mission field, but also the lives, meaning the lives that we work with here, but also the lives that we have brought down here as far as our short-term teams and things like that. So it's been well worth it. Worth it. Well, anyway,
Absolutely.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining.
Oh, sure.
I think you were the perfect person for this this session here. So thank you so much. And it was just incredible talking to you. And God bless you and John for all the work that you guys do down here.
Thank you so much. It has been a privilege. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.